My name's Rich, welcome back to Me, My Bike and I. Today we're going to carry on with the rebuild of the 1984 Honda VF750F engine. I've got a few internals to fit still, the crankshaft, the input shaft, a few of the tensioner mechanism parts. Before I do that, we need to hone these cylinders. I am waiting for a ball hone of the right size, so before we get to any of that, we are going to reassemble the cylinder heads. So let's get them on the bench. So we'll start with the rear one. So the way I've put this on the bench, we have got the number one cylinder valves here. These are the exhaust, the outer and the inner. And as I've set my little box down, I have got the number one cylinder valves here, the exhaust, the outer and the inner. There you go, 1E. Issue I've got is that my quite old now valve spring compressor is a little warped. It's not, well, it's out of true. So you know, you can't draw a straight line across there, across that axis, and it needs to be dead nuts on, otherwise you just keep slipping off the valves when you're trying to compress the spring. So I'm going to see if I can heat this and bring it back in, and I just need to stick a bar through there to kind of give it some leverage and perhaps hold the other end in the vise. And I'm going to use this, which is a 40-year-old, it's actually a mounting bolt of a 1983, I think it is, might be older, Honda CX650. So, be a shame to damage it, but I think we'll be okay. Okay, the threads seem to be of the same size, so hopefully that won't damage the threads in there or on this bolt. I don't know how well you can see this, but it looks pretty dead on now, so maybe a tiny little bit more movement. Let's see if we can get a little bit more reformation into that, but it should be effective now. No, I think I'm going to leave that exactly as is. That looks pretty dead nuts on. It's just got like that over time. Obviously spring force on the valves pushing those two ends apart, naturally going to put a bend in it, and just couldn't get it to stay on the valves properly last time I put a cylinder head back together, so I knew I was going to need to do this time round, but it's had so many uses, it's just happened over time, but it should be absolutely fine for this single use. When I say single use, I mean 16 valves, of course, but should be a lot easier now. Well, there's your measure, it fits in the box now. So all the valves have been lapped back into the head, so I don't need to do anything with the valves. They're all really nice and they've got good faces on them, as have the seats. Looking alright. But we'll spray everything with brake cleaner as I assemble and then just re-oil. But these, which essentially go in on the end of your rockers, I need to clean up the ends of, because they are covered in paint still, which I thought I'd done. I obviously just put them away with a view to cleaning them as I reassemble, which we'll do. Right, all clean, and I'm going to use, what do you call it, assembly lube for these, because yeah, these are tired old parts, and I just want to make sure everything's okay when it gets its, not that these are spinning at a rate of knots, but oil passes through passages inside the actual rocker arm, through that little oiling passage there. And yeah, so anyway, common sense says get all the valves in before I put the rockers and rocker arms in, because they're going to flap around otherwise while I'm fiddling around with this. So let's do that bit first. So I'm going to slip that back in my little box, and we'll go around and systematically get all of the valves in, and then we'll go around and put the 4 rockers and arms in. Cleaned every last one of them up though, so all ready to go back in. Alright, with this setup then, you've got your 2 springs, your 2 spring seats, one slightly thicker than the other. That's sort of a shimming thing really, I guess, just to give it more tension, compression, whatever. Your valve, your collets, and your valve retainer. So these have been, I think I probably mentioned, already lapped in and then cleaned up and stored. So it just leaves me to fit them. So let's get these assembled, and that's the first one done. So this is the number 1 exhaust outer valve. That one right there. So I'm going to put a little bit of engine oil on the stem. So I mean, naturally you're going to get a bit of oil burning off when you first start up the engine. You hear that little ching ching noise, that's a sign of a really good seat, otherwise you get a dull thud. That's all good. I'm just going to lay that down for a moment. And we need to drop all the little bits in on top of that step. Not forgetting, of course, one crucial thing. Don't go forgetting your valve stem seals. Very easily done. Right, so this can be a little fiddly, but we just need to pop it on, pop it over. And I'm actually using this hole punch to just push it down with. There you go, just slot straight on. So you might need to hold that from underneath and just give that an extra little push. It's on. Good. Right, I'm just going to drop in the inner spring seat, the outer spring seat, and one is thicker than the other, and that is why they are in two pieces. You could machine it as one, I guess, but probably be more expensive to do it that way. Inner spring, outer spring, and you see they're both at the same height, and the retainer. Try not to lose these slippery little suckers. Okay, so the friction of the stem seal is kind of holding the valve in a little bit now, so you don't need to worry too much about that dropping out. But okay, so I've got that directly underneath, and in the centre of the valve. There you go. So the issue I was having before with this was that was just kind of pushing it to one side, and it was being really difficult to try and stop everything flying apart. All we're going to do now is wind this down until we can see the indent in the top of the valve stem. This is working nicely, so my little fix did the job. So the collets have got to drop into there. Hopefully you can see that clearly enough. And these can be a real pain in the hoo-ha. Just using a pair of tweezers to help position that in. Which is not helping at all. Okay. Okay, so it does need to sit up slightly. I'm just gonna, well, actually let's put the other one in first. Okay, the trouble is, even when you're not using magnets, what you have to hand is going to be slightly magnetic. Let me get another one of these little picks. Okay, well, that's dropped in. Right, hopefully what I'll do is I'll start to let this up. And I should drop into place. These are among the most fiddliest of things you can do on an engine. It's still slightly ski-whiff, which is why it's one of them's gone a little tight. Right, everything looks like it's in okay. I'm probably just going to press down on that a little bit, give it all a wiggle, make sure they are properly engaged, but it looks fine to me, so I can just go ahead and do all the others. So got one down, 15 to go. Right, well, that's the second one in. The trick is with these is holding onto the collets and being able to let go of them whilst trying to position them. That's the fiddly bit. So you're probably better off with like copper picks or something like that. Well, I'm just going to skip forward on all 8 of these valves and then we can crack on with the rockers. I'll see you in a bit. I know I just said I was going to skip forward. I'm on the number 3 cylinder now, inside exhaust, and I just thought I'd show you when you get into the swing of it, when you compress the spring down to the optimum sort of height, if you like, what you find is those collets do just drop straight in actually, and it just becomes a lot easier. So I'm just going to literally let this up now and you should be able to see, although I think you're probably blocked. There you go. Slotting in just nicely. So that's all the valves and springs in on the rear cylinder, and yeah, it's fiddly, but if you just, with a bit of practice, if you get these springs down to about 7 or 8 millimeters below the tip of the valve, it's just about the right height where the collets will just drop down and sit roughly where they need to, so that when you let the spring up, it just pulls them up and into place. If you go too low, it will tend to wedge them. One will fall right down in, and yeah, so you just need to, just a little bit of practice, a couple of different picks. I'd say probably use something non-magnetic because grabbing is an issue, but when you get into the swing of it, it goes quite quickly. So the next thing I need to do is put the rockers and rocker arms in. I'm going to do that now before I move on to the front cylinder. So we've got the number 1 exhaust and intake and the number 3 exhaust and intake, and I've actually already cleaned them completely up because they were all covered in paint and grot, so they're all good to go back in. I just need to give them a bit of lubrication to do that. So we'll slip those in and then I will get the front cylinder done. That's all the valves and everything there. There's nothing to this really. I'm not going to use assembly lube on these. I'm literally just going to drop a bit of oil in and just into the threads. So what we've got to do, again, completely cleaned up, so that needs to slot in there onto that shaft. It won't just go in straight, you just have to put it in a sideways angle and then finagle it in like that. Okay, just make sure it's in the right position. You need a 10mm Allen. Looks a darn sight nicer than when it came out, all covered in red and black paint anyway. imagine they're more than about 20 Newton meters of torque. We'll look up the spec. Let's spin this round so we can get to it. And I've just realised I've put those in on the wrong side because I had the head facing the other way. So I'm going to need to get those out again because they are meant to be on this side. Okay. Let's just need a little bubble wrap popping. Right. We'll start again, shall we? No harm done. And it wouldn't, to be perfectly honest, cause any problems anyway. It's just better to get everything back where it came from. Came out of there. Some observant among you might have already saw that mistake. So right, we are back at the start, so let's flip this back round. Now we've got the number 1 exhaust in the right place, so let's pop that in there, twist it in. It took me a while to figure out how they actually came out of there when I was taking these heads apart. Okay, number 1 intake. Goes quick when you get the knack. Okay, now we'll flip it around again. So this is the number 3 intake. I've got absolutely everything labelled up, so difficult to go wrong. Except I did, didn't I? And the number 3 exhaust. Okay, that's that head finished. I'm just going to go and look up the torque specs for these, if there are any. Wow, rocker arm shafts 45 to 50 Newton meters. That is considerably more than I thought it would be. So glad I checked. bigger of the two because it goes up to where I need it to, and bang on 50. And it's got a 1/2 inch square drive, and I've got some 1/2 inch sockets, and that's a hex 10mm. In fact, that's no good, is it? Because I need an Allen. Okay, let's use a 1/2 inch Allen. As in, it's a 10mm, but it's got a 1/2 inch drive. Right. See how far off we were. Pretty much bang on the 50 Newton meters there, I think, so pretty good. Same that side. Swap this round. To be fair, I think if we hadn't done that, it would have probably been sitting on about 45 and it would have been absolutely fine. So, okay, so is this one all done? Just need to move on to the front. Well, that's both cylinder heads done, all torqued up, ready to go back on the engine. Just need to get the engine fully reassembled. So that's it for this video. We have got the cylinder heads completely rebuilt now. Next video we are going to be onto the lower and the upper case, getting everything back in, the input shaft, the crankshaft. There's a couple of little tension bits to go in, and then we can pull the cases together. I've now received, while we were making this video, the ball hone I needed, 70mm, in order just to hone the, over there, the cylinders. So I'm going to whip the pistons back out, hone them, put them back in, and then we carry on with the rebuild. Till then, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you next time.